like I remember you. Like I remember you. I felt like running through the pouring rain. I felt like letting go of my mind. I felt it coming with no ground to embrace. I think I just might be bad for you. Drowning by the fact that I don't need a reason to be mad for you. I'm losing my head and I'm mad for you. take you
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Down in the Valley. My name is Edson Ochoa, and accompanying me today, as always, is a good old friend, Jacob Young. Jacob, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Looking forward to talking about the Toros and talking about some soccer.
Definitely. It's always a pleasure to talk Toros alongside you. It's pretty fun to talk about, and there's a lot to talk about this week. As you all probably know, it's San Antonio Hate Week, just like the title says. So this Saturday, RGVFC will be traveling to San Antonio to take on SAFC at Toyota Field. So it's going to be an interesting topic to talk about tonight. Later on the show, we should be having Harry Austin from who's the local San Antonio friend to talk more about this match that's going to happen on Saturday. We'll be talking about pretty much that this is not the same SAFC we defeated 3-1 a couple of weeks ago. Also, we'll continue to talk about the match that happened this past weekend against Colorado Springs Switchbacks. So it will be interesting to listen to that analysis of those two games. So be sure, guys, before we begin, if you guys haven't done so already, be sure to like this video. Be sure to share it with your friends. If you haven't been subscribed already, number one, why haven't you? And number two, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And that way you get notified anytime that we go live for a show, whether it's Generation Orange or Down in the Valley, or when we upload YouTube videos like the FIFA 19 Career Mode series for RGVFC. As well as also be sure to check out the BGN's sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of USL, MLS, and U.S. Soccer. Having said all of this, let's go ahead and get started with what we're here to talk about. And that is the Colorado Springs Switchbacks match that happened last Saturday. Now, as you all know, not us, but the Toros traveled to Colorado Springs during the weekend. We talked about it last week that there were going to be a lot of factors that might have affect the outcome of the match. We talked about obviously the what's the term? The elevation of Colorado Springs. We talked about the fitness level. We also talked about the ability to adapt to those changes. And the Toros, honestly, we keep on running into this issue, and that is some weird reason the Toros start off a match shaky. Once they see that they're down 2 goals, that's when they react and start playing like they should. And it kind of from a fan perspective, it kind of gets annoying because the team knows how to play. They always show it. But why does it take going down? Like, why can't they keep the concentration going for the 90 plus minutes?
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, it's a weird phenomenon, and we've seen it multiple times this year. We saw it a couple of times last year. Now, I will give them credit. Once they're down 2-0, it's weird, as in they start to play like they've never played before. And then it just looks like a totally different team, and it looks absolutely impressive, to say so the least. I mean, you're talking about clean, crisp passes and what exactly needs to be done and stuff like that.
What's more interesting about it is that we were talking about last week that because of the elevation, because of the air resistance being less than it is in the valley, we figured that it would take a while for them to kind of get used to it. But what we saw once they reacted, it looked like the Toros that almost kind of dominates in the at HEB Park. I mean, you're down 2-0. You managed to flip the score around, go up 3-2, 3 unanswered goals away, which is more than the parent team could apparently do, but that's neither here nor there. But there really is a lot to analyze about this match, more specifically the goal opportunities from both sides. Mm-hmm. Jacob, what can you tell us? What are your thoughts like about this match?
Well, I mean, it was an interesting match to say the least, once again, because the Toros started off slow. I mean, they started off slow both halves, to be fair. And that's normally how we expect it. And once again, we've seen it from both sides, as in not just the Toros, but we've also seen it from Houston Dynamo. That's besides the point. But it like, from that standpoint, they're able to basically just take off, and they were able to take off and play a bit better, even though they were down 1-0 then 2-0. And then, of course, that second half, when they got their confidence back and were able to put almost 3 unanswered goals at one point into the back of the net, was very impressive, because it just shows you the fight that you could have had at games where you had lost even 1 point. And we're talking about Real Monarchs to OKC on the road and things like that. Other than that, and I kind of expected this, as in it would be a bit more scoring. But it's weird, they didn't look as bad, but they still could have looked better.
I can definitely agree with that. I mean, as always, you can never be too good. There's always going to be things that need to be improved on a team. But one of the things, and I'm kind of falling out of order, but one of the things that still irritates me is our defense still has not been able to know how to defend a set piece.
Yep.
In about the 8th minute, you had Colorado Springs hit the post off of a corner kick, where the defender or the player manages to get unmarked and hit the ball towards the goal comfortably. And if it hadn't been for the post, that would have been a goal for Colorado.
Yeah.
And then the third goal in the stoppage time of the second half, it happened again. Another corner, and this time the defender that got to it, he got a good touch to it and was able to get past Nico Corti. Now, my biggest concern out of these two plays is that, if I'm not mistaken, in both cases, the Colorado Switchbacks player makes contact with the ball at the edge of the 6 yard box, and it's kind of frustrating to me that they look lost out there. Like, I don't know what kind of marking they're doing in set pieces. To me, it looks like they're going more of a zone marking. But the way they're handling the zone marking, they give the attackers too much room to get a running start, to get a head start on catching up to the ball. And instead of acting to clear the ball away, it seems that defenders are reacting to what the striker or the attacker once they make contact with the ball. And I think that's been the biggest issue for the Toros in these past couple of matches.
For sure, most definitely. It's the shakiness of the defense somewhat. And once again, we revert back to even what you said, even what we said last week, even what Coach has said before, is set pieces. Yeah, sure, that one didn't go in necessarily from Colorado Springs switchbacks, but those corner kicks have gone in from opposing sides almost week in and week out. And so we keep on reverting back to that, and it's a very frustrating thing. Now, of course, we know that that's not going to be fixed overnight. It does take time, but the time is now for it to be fixed or for it to just look a bit better. We're talking about headers that are headed away instead of headed right at goal where Nico Corti has to try to save it, or, basically the header is going the opposite direction for the defense. And because we know that the defense is ready, we know that we have a solid back line, but for a couple of weeks now, it just seems like that back line has kind of not necessarily been there to its full potential, letting the opposing teams maybe getting into the box a bit more. And we also talked about it last week too, how basically we were playing a bit too far up, especially on the offense, giving opposing teams chances to counterattack and take advantage of it. And sure enough, that last week it was. Luckily, of course, this week, not too much, but still there's ways for improvement, especially from that back line. We've seen them before, especially better this season in general. So what has happened to them? Probably because the way that I think, in a sense, Coach is playing them. He wants them to kind of push up sometimes on defense. Now, that doesn't mean that on set pieces, ball's not going to go in the back of the net. The ball will probably still go in the back of the net. That still needs to be worked on a lot.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just frustrating to see that this team the defense has not looked bad, but the last couple of matches, it's been like you say, I don't know if they've lost a little bit of confidence, or just the way that they position themselves. To me, it's more about positioning, and I keep on going back to saying that it seems to me that they're going for zone. But to me, if they're playing in a zone marking, it seems like they're not positioning themselves correctly, because more often than not, it's the attackers that manage to get a touch on the ball inside the box rather than the attackers clearing it out. And, at least to me, with man marking, one of the advantages that I see from it is that when you're man marking, not the opposing striker not only has to look at where the ball is coming, but he also has to pay attention. Okay, I got a guy right next to me. Where do I run to get past him but at the same time, meet the ball at the right angle to get it on goal. Whereas where it's zone marking, but everybody's so far away, from who they're supposed to mark, the striker can just get from point A to point B and just connect with the ball. And he's got all of that running speed to when he connects to it. And like I said, it seems like in those cases, it's more of a reaction from our defenders rather than being proactive to avoid the striker from getting towards the ball. Now, I still think that maybe in the third goal, maybe a keeper with a higher box presence could have gone up to, I guess, intercept that or clear it out with his fists rather than waiting on the line for it. Because one of the things, is that as a goalkeeper, you need to have a command of your 6-yard box.
Uh-huh.
And if you're going, and as a keeper, because you need that command, you need to be able, when needed, you need to be able to go up there, especially when it's almost like in the middle of the box. You need to be able to go up there and either catch the ball coming in or clear it out. And I feel like Nico, he's a really good keeper, believe me. We've praised him a lot. But it seems that sometimes his command of the box is just not there yet. And I want to guess that this is something normal in young USL keepers, not so much with veteran keepers. It's just a matter of gaining experience, knowing when to go out, when to stay back. And it's going to take time for him to understand that. But at the same time, his defenders have to, they have to do their part and help him out. Because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 8. You have one person on the first post. You only have one attacker inside the 6-yard box, but you have 7 players there. That just leads up to a sort of confusion, because you've got only 3 players, going up for 4 players, going up to try to meet the ball. And there's confusion. Okay, who am I gonna mark? Who am I gonna get? And like I said, and then the more interesting part of this is that when the attacker makes contact with the ball, he gets over 2 Toros players. There were 2 Toros players in that little area of the box, which leads me to believe 2 things. One, Kyle Adams and let me see if I can identify who the other one was. Was it Coste? I hate that it's so blurry. Might have actually been Samuels, but they either got in each other's way, or what's more worrisome to me is that even with what's supposed to be a numerical advantage in that space in the box, the attacker still managed to get to the ball before you. That is worrisome. And I want to hope that it's just that they got in each other's way rather than the latter. Because if that's the case, then I go back to my point, is they're being reactive and they're not being proactive when they're defending set pieces.
Yeah, and I mean it's weird for sure, because yeah, you need to be proactive. And of course, it's a USL, and normally it becomes just reaction stuff, things like that, which it can't be because especially throughout the next level, they're not reactive; they are proactive for sure. And yes, you can put some of the blame for that on coach, but at the same time, look, these players know what they're doing, and they should know a bit better, especially given the fact that it's more than halfway through a season. And guess what? All these players have played together for multiple games. Yes, we have Andrew Samuels from Houston who doesn't stay down here.
No, Andrew Simmons does stay here.
He does. Okay.
Yes. It's Junqua that doesn't stay here. Junqua's the one that goes back and forth between Houston and RGV. Samuels is in RGV week in and week out.
Cool. So there's one to add to the whole thing that he technically has an MLS contract, but guess what? He stays down here, so that's pretty cool. Of course, we will not get into that for the sake of Edson's health.
Please, I already had enough from yesterday's yesterday's round table for Generation Orange. But we will talk about the effects of Wilmer Cabrera's firing, what kind of effects we expect will have on RGV. But that'll be later on in the episode. So continue.
So, Andrew Samuels, that's pretty cool. But yeah, Sam Junko, one of the guys that doesn't stay down here. So, of course, but they've played together with each other for multiple games, which is pretty cool. Now, of course, going back to the Nico Cordy thing as well, yeah. Who are the best goalkeepers and what age are they? There's a reason why goalkeepers are so amazing at 30 plus years of age. They're so amazing even at 40. Talking about
Buffon.
the Juventus goalkeeper here.
Gigi Buffon.
Exactly. So there's a reason on that, but of course, you got to be more proactive than reactive when it comes to this. And of course, that's just, of course, the tip of the iceberg. Now it's at pieces. That's also another thing. I don't think zonal marking needs to be there. I think it really does need to be kind of man-to-man. Keep up with your man so that they don't get away and just really stand up tall to your person, because it's going to be tough. And yeah, of course, you just got to be smart with positioning.
Yeah, to me it seemed, while I do understand that they were trying to keep the lead in stoppage time in that corner, to me it seemed overkill to have 8 players inside the 6-yard box. And you see the replay where everybody's, where it is positioned. Besides that, those 6 players, you have the 4 players. You had the 4 players that were up to hit the ball, that were inside the 18-yard box, and really, all 3 of them pretty much were on par with the penalty spot, and they had so much space in front of them to run towards and meet the ball. You had Shui outside the 18-yard box. He was guarding nobody. You have, is that Chalene? I can't see his number because he wasn't turning around. But there's one player inside the 18-yard box, just inside of it. He did not move at all. Trying to follow their attackers. You look at, I think that is, what was that? You look at the other defender that was outside the 6-yard box or the 8-yard box, and it's like I said, he just stood there all the time because he was waiting for the player who he was marking to come to him. And everybody that was inside that box, that's what they were doing. And we're seeing, with all of these goals that they've been scoring against the team, against the Toros, on set pieces, especially in corner kicks. Well, maybe something has to change in that aspect, in the way they defend set pieces. And the way I see it, well, it's usually because it's what I see most in professional soccer, which is man-to-man marking. The question is, we need a defender with presence.
Yeah.
And we talk about it about our rosters. We have good defenders. We have good center backs, but they are more technical than using their brute force, like, to stop attackers, to use their strength to avoid the other team to get opportunities. And maybe zone marking fits with those kind of players, but I guess when putting it into practice, it's kind of worrisome how many goals they've scored against us in that aspect. So maybe looking into the future, looking into the end of the season, maybe heading into next season, one of the things that maybe we need to look at in the off season would be getting a defender, maybe a veteran defender, a veteran USL defender that's not afraid to use his body to stop the attacker, to stop the other striker.
Well, one thing I will mention, though, for this, and it kind of does factor into our defense, is the absence of Connor Donovan. Yes, he has been here for a couple of games inside the lineup, but he hasn't been a consistent starter as he once was last year. I do see him on the bench sometimes, or up in the stands sometimes at HEB Park. Understandable because of the schedule. But at the same time, it makes you wonder, well, he doesn't necessarily get as much playing time as, let's say, Kyle Adams and all these other players. And he is one of the veterans right there. You put him in the lineup, I think he can help a lot too, no matter in what position. Because I think he can still be one of those centers. But yes, I know you rotate out, and that seems like a fine thing, but that's one thing that I did notice.
See, to me, it's not about rotation, but rather that maybe Robert Castellanos has earned his spot in the starting 11.
Yeah, and I bet that's true 100% too, because he looks great as well, and there are reasons. And of course, Connor Donovan's still probably nursing some sort of injury, especially he had that long, I believe it was a knee injury at the beginning of the year.
So I think I don't really remember what it was.
Exactly, it was some type of injury from his legs. I guess we can put it that way.
Yeah,
could have been ankle, could have been knee.
To me, it seems more along the lines of overall, barring set pieces. Maybe Robert Castellanos has grown to be a better overall defender paired alongside Kyle Adams than maybe Connor Donovan, which is good because we've been calling about we need players to fight for their positions, and they're going to fight for their starting position in practice. And I think that's what's happening because it's been a couple of weeks where Robert Castellanos has been the starting has made the starting 11 alongside with Kyle Adams. And it's good. It shows how this young defender has progressed, from being behind Kyle and Connor and Fuenmayor or whatever, to now actually being considered starting 11 in the USL. And to me, I don't have any problems with that at all. It's just that if this is going to be our partnership from here on out for the rest, maybe for at least the rest of the season, then Colin and Caste, they need to work with each other, communicate with each other, what kind of movements they're going to be doing inside the box, in order to be able to defend efficiently, corner kicks. Yeah. Because if this is going to be a problem, that this is going to be the biggest weakness for this team, then something's gonna have to happen. We probably need, like I said, we probably may need a player with a different characteristic than we currently have in the center back position that can probably help them. It can help them continue to develop that aspect, because let's not forget that Kyle and Coste are still very young, and so maybe. It all goes back, and we've said it many times this season, it all goes back to being able to efficiently mix veteranship with young players that need to be developed. Because they learn from these guys, something different that'll help them become future MLSers. Or being able to go out to, and play well in a different league that plays whose play style is completely different from USL Championship, and as far as that's all I pretty much have to say. Is just gotta keep working at practice, and the defense has gotta make sure that if you're going to play zone, you have to know how to be able to intercept the ball. Don't wait for it. Go for the ball too. Get there first before you're the attacker. Because if you're gonna be just waiting and seeing what the attacker is doing, and then react to when he makes contact with the ball, and then jump, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna get beat. And if maybe coach decides maybe we need to try something else. Maybe we need to try man-to-man defense. Then it's going to take a lot of practice during the week to get used to that new way of defending and learning how to do it efficiently. It takes a process to do it, and I know these guys can do it because they've learned a lot. But like you said, we're late into the season. And we're still seeing some of these quirks in this defense.
Yep. Yeah, and that's pretty crazy to say that. Yeah, we're still having problems with things that are in a way basic, but easier said than done.
Correct.
Again, not a player, don't know. But for sure, I know if you react half the time, it is a problem, and you will get beat. Same thing with really anything.
It's kind of like in drag racing, where if you wait until the light turns green, then it's already too late for you to react. Like
Yep.
you have to be able to anticipate when the light is going to go green, and so that way you can get a quick reaction time.
Exactly.
You might run the risk of red lighting, but you're going to fine-tune that ability to anticipate to the point where you're going to be consistently doing almost close to 0 reaction times. And the same thing happens here. You're going to try to react. You might whiff sometimes, or the ball might hit over you. But you're going to fine-tune it, because if this is what RGV is going to be about, which is develop players, then take advantage of it. Try try something like that to refine your skills. If you're gonna play zone, or you can refine your skills going man-to-man coverage.
Yeah, exactly. And these players are capable of practicing 100% and learning a new system, not necessarily system, but just a new style of corner kicks or whatever, which would be man-to-man, just like we said. They're capable of learning that. Up to coach if he wants to change it, switch it out or not, because guess what? Like we said before, coach is also noticing these things that we're talking about. And so it's important to say that, because we're kind of on the same page. And so we know that things need to change. I bet you the players do as well. And yes, it does take practice. And if they need to change out a little tactic, that's fine. If they don't, well, then you just got to make sure to anticipate something instead of waiting.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing I do want to touch up on, and it watching the game. A lot of the times, when it's going live, I watch it as a fan. So I don't have that neutrality of analyzing. I watch it as a fan. So you look at the Colorado's second goal, and my reaction to it is like, what in the world are you doing, Kyle Adams? Kind of reaction. Actually, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. First goal, my biggest problem. There continues to be number one. It might have been because of how the play was created by Colorado Springs switchbacks, but why was Kyle Adams the one that was marking number 19, which is the winger for Colorado Springs, which is Tucker Bone? Why was Kyle Adams out on the wing guarding Tucker Bone and not Sam Junqua? That's number one. So during the play, Tucker Bone cuts inside. And you have Kyle Adams at him. You have Shane Malcolm, I think that's who was the goal scorer, all alone outside of the box, just waiting for the ball to get passed, right? And so he gets the ball, and you see, I think it was Chelin. You see Chelin, we go back to being reactive versus being proactive. By the time he sees that Bone pass the ball to Shane Malcolm already had a touch on the ball to go inside of the box and take the shot. And there was nobody in front of him, neither Junqua nor Chelin nor Robert Castellanos, who was already marking somebody, to be able to intercept, to at least block that shot that went past Nico Corti. It was just sure. It was a beautiful, beautiful touch by Malcolm. A beautiful shot. It goes through. I believe it goes through between the legs of Robert Castellanos. But still, it's like it's this lack. They haven't learned how to position themselves well defensive wise when it comes to playing outside on the wings in this match, and it hit them in the first goal. Second goal, I don't know what Kyle Adams was thinking in keeping the ball right in front of the goal line instead of clearing it out on the first touch. You can't do that. You can't risk it right in front of goal when you don't even have the goalkeeper right next to you. Nico Corti made an amazing save. And like I said, I don't know what Kyle Adams was doing. I understand he probably, because I see the replay now, and the ball, the shot, kind of gets behind him. So he tries to get a touch on it, to control it, or not let it get past him. But by the time he regains his balance and tries to clear it out, you got the Colorado Springs switchbacks attacker already got a touch to it and into the goal. So, like I said, my first reaction was, what the hell were you thinking, Kyle Adams? But you're looking at this replay and the way the momentum was for Kyle Adams as he was running towards the goal line and the ball went right behind him, you kind of understand why it took a while for him to have made that reaction. But in those kind of cases, you see that Sam Junqua, could have alerted Kyle Adams like, hey, who was the second goal scorer? Jordan Burt's behind you, or let it go through. I'm right behind you. And it's that lack of communication that's still kind of lacking. At least this is what I see. And obviously the Toros goals, beautiful playmaking. First goal was a beautiful back heel, very cheeky, by Andres Arcila to Michael Salazar, doing what he does best in the USL, which is scoring goals. Even though people, Dynamo fans, I see you, Callo. make fun of him and saying he doesn't finish anything. But in USL, he's able to he finishes quite well, thank you. And then second goal, what a pass by Chalin. What vision by Chalin to pass the ball to Kevin Rodriguez. And the composure by Kevin Rodriguez, a young guy, the composure right to having the goalie right in front of you and being able to squeak that ball past the keeper and into the goal. At first, I thought that the defender got to it first, but the linesman said it went in completely. And the third goal, what a free kick shot by Andres Arcila, the man on fire.
Exactly. I mean, look at what form Andres Arcila has come into this season, as well as he's just grown into an absolutely fantastic player that is, of course, in the USL. We didn't see him necessarily start, and finally he got those opportunities, which is awesome. That's what we talked about for a while, is take advantage of your opportunities. And guess what? That player, Andres Arcila, doing exactly that, as well as Michael Salazar coming back into this lineup and kind of giving this team, especially the offense, confidence that they can score goals. Not only that, but kind of, I don't know, it's something that we kind of noticed, especially when he left. We kind of lost that confidence and then saw that Carlos Small-Calicha wasn't necessarily performing or playing his best. Same thing with Chuy Enriquez, not necessarily playing their best. And Michael Salazar comes back in and kind of ties this offense back together and makes them show that, hey, you can actually score goals, kind of, and it's pretty nice. So that's a nice thing that we have. It's just, of course, wrap it all together, make it a full team, and you're looking at a team that can go undefeated for almost a month. Have a crazy home record, have a crazy month record too, because this team, they're playing like they could beat Phoenix Rising FC. They just haven't put it all together. Once again, they had it together at the start of the season, just like we were stating, but now it's kind of like it's in pieces, but we're starting to put all of those things back together and make a late run.
Definitely. So I think final thoughts for me for this match against Colorado Springs Switchbacks is the defense. What for a couple of weeks was our strongest point, and we talked about it last week. The defense, the performance, the great performances by the defense was only gonna last so long, and the offense needed to step up. Today, or this match, the offense stepped up, but the defense had some brain farts. I don't know what I call it, some mistakes that cost them 3 goals against Colorado Springs, and what could have been a match to bring in 3 points and the confidence to go to Toyota Field to take on San Antonio FC. Instead of that, we have a lot of questions as going into this match against San Antonio. And speaking of San Antonio, we now have with us Harry Austin from the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. Harry, how are you doing, mate? How are you doing?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
We're doing pretty well. How about just, like I said, we're just finishing discussing this match against Colorado Springs Switchbacks. So I want to get your thoughts. You posted on Twitter that you watched this the replay of this match.
Correct.
And from somebody that is neutral to both teams, whether Colorado or RGV, what are your thoughts on how the way the Toros looked in this match? Are we kind of in the general vicinity of what actually happened?
Yeah, well, to me, the key was that second goal, because you got, and then why the defender didn't clear it, and that was what you asked, and I forget who it was.
Kyle Adams.
It's like he thought he had time, and you're in the box right in front of the goal. You don't have time. Bert, I think Bert was the one that scored it for the Switchbacks. he just he just snuck up behind him, and any of our kids, if you have kids that play, would have been right there just to tap it in, and that's what happened. And to me, that's kind of a microcosm of kind of the RGV season. It seems like, where they're able to make the play, but it's one or two plays that just gives you a head scratcher of what are they doing. But you have to give it up to RGV. They came back and they took the lead, because that was what 2-0 down the first 20 minutes, I believe.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then they came back, and they had the lead, and I didn't realize, because I just saw it was 3-3 after the game, and I was like, okay. And I didn't realize that the Switchbacks got that third goal so late. I thought it was more in the run of play during the match, but it's just that's a tough one. It's one where you love the fight in the team to come back from being down 2-0 early, but it's one of those matches where you felt like you gave points away, in my opinion.
No, I can definitely agree with that analysis of we gave those points away. Back in last week's episode, we mentioned this match against Colorado Springs, was the perfect moment to get 3 points on the road and a good amount of confidence heading into the South Texas Derby. And looking at how San Antonio has been playing, I have to give it up to you guys. And this is one of the things that I wanted to ask you. Mm-hmm. Back when we played the first match of the South Texas Derby for the 2019 regular season, the team, San Antonio, was in shambles. Yes. Nothing went right. It seemed like players weren't giving it their all. The coach was on the verge of being, sacked.
At least from the fans' perspective.
From the fans' perspective, he was on the verge of being sacked because of the bad, performances, especially, losing, 3-1 at HEB Park against RGVFC.
And it wasn't even that close. And that was following, I think, 2 matches against Austin that they did not look very well on.
Correct.
As well. So,
and you look at San Antonio now. You're coming into this match with a 4-1 win over Reno 1868 at Reno. And you're seeing also other results. You Mental Republic at home 2-3, but most of the matches after that rut have been against really strong teams, and from being, I believe it was like 6 points down on RGV the last time we met, mm-hmm. You guys are now like ahead of us, like so close to making playoffs. Yeah, what has changed about this team?
2 words: Frank Lopez. I don't know how they got him on loan from the Galaxy, because he was their leading scorer. But they got him right before the El Paso match, and it's a different team up front. He's got that speed factor. Not that Guzman was bad, but you didn't have anybody that could put pressure up front with speed. Mm-hmm. With him, and obviously, he's been player of the week on the team of the week several times this year. Yeah. Just his speed and his ability to finish. And then you've got Prano, who had a brace last week and was player of the week for USL this week here. With his speed and grittiness, as I like to call it, starting to get the confidence to take shots outside the box. Mm-hmm. But really, it was that Frank Lopez signing, and as weird as it is, ever going to the bench has just made a world of difference with this team. Billy Forbes has been kind of in and out. They did, have Jameson get injured against Reno, and it looked pretty severe where he got carted off, with a groin injury. So yeah. I doubt that he's going to be there. But the answer to the questions, it's got to be Frank Lopez. And the other thing, and I don't know if he was back at the time, was Pekka. He's kind of he's our captain. He's the defensive mid that kind of shores up the back, because that's where we're having a lot of problems. They've been running with him and LaHood in the back, and that's shoring up the defense quite a bit, as far as compared to early in the season when we faced you guys.
Yeah, it's interesting, and to me, from what you're describing, that change pre-Lopez to post-Lopez, it almost seems to me that maybe Guzman probably really wasn't the right fit for the players that were around him.
Correct.
By his style of being more of a postman. My dad best described yesterday when I was talking to him, he best described, Guzman as a Gignac, in the way of Gignac can be, absent from the match 90 minutes or 89 minutes, but that one opportunity where you kind of lose you lose your guard, and he can go ahead and pretty much be the difference in that 1 minute. Whereas what you're telling me from Frank Lopez is this is a player that is going to be active, all the amount of minutes that he's going to be on the pitch, putting pressure, getting open, taking shots, et cetera, et cetera. And to me, it might have been that breath of fresh air that San Antonio needed, going into this season, because you look at going into the beginning of the season in preseason, San Antonio with the changes that they made, bringing in Kai Green, bringing in a lot of defensive upgrades, if you want to call it, to this team. San Antonio was lauded as one of the teams to fight for the top spots in the Western Conference. And what we saw in the beginning of the season from then was a huge letdown for a lot of people, including, the USL pundits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a slow start. There's no question about that. It's if you look at the recent form now, you would think that that's how they should have been playing all year. But as we both know, on paper doesn't always equate to how it turns out on the field.
Yeah. Then we see it so many times. In soccer, for 90 minutes, it's 11 versus 11, and it doesn't matter who you have up front. Anybody can beat anybody, even if on paper you can say, well, 9 times out of 10 this team should win. But there's still that 10% chance that there's going to be an upset, and especially right now in the Western Conference where it's so competitive right now. Even teams like Reno, who was, I believe, in second place going into this match, Sacramento. And all those teams, New Mexico United, that are fighting for the top spots, they can go into a match against Portland Timbers 2 or against even RGV themselves, teams that you don't really see as strong, in the overall aspect of the season, and they can drop points against these kind of teams, even against Tacoma Defiance.
Yeah, Tacoma's really starting to improve. So I know we kind of, dog on Tacoma, but to me, if I was going to say the worst team right now would probably be Tulsa, because you look, they got off to such the hot start at the season.
Oh yeah.
And they've, with their 17th now, where Tacoma's starting to rise up. But to me, anywhere in the top 15, because I think as we saw with the switchbacks, I honestly believe you guys should have beat them. You guys outplayed them outside of that first 20 minutes, and to me, it goes back to those early plays where you don't think it matters, but it does at the end on that second goal. But to me, even looking at RGV, which is 24 points, they're only 6 points out from 10th where we're at. If you guys get on a roll, now you got some teams to jump, and that's going to be the challenging aspect for, even San Antonio to try to move up, is you're going to have to start jumping teams, and the West is just so, so challenging, because outside of let's say Phoenix, outside the top three, really it's a dogfight between 4 and 15, where it's only separated by 10 points for that here, which Real Monarchs,
Yeah, correct.
they've got
10 points.
a couple of games in hand, but typically when it comes to late season, they start to fold. The team that I guess still surprises me a little bit is Austin, because they are more of a veteran team.
Mm-hmm.
You have to wonder if they're going to start coming back to the pack, with the summer heat and stuff like that. But I guess my main question for you guys is just kind of doing the things here. Number one, the possible changes with in Houston. How do you think that's going to affect? And then number two, and this is just something that I kind of noticed here, is the physicality of where did I see it? The physicality of RGV. It doesn't, like they've only conceded 224 fouls, which is near the bottom of USL, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but I'm wondering if that is because RGV you always thinks kind of a little bit tough. Get that little chip on their shoulder. At least that's my perception of them. Is that something that's maybe kind of missing this year? And where that aggressiveness for that here, is you think that's could possibly be why you guys are struggling a little bit more?
Jacob, you want to answer that first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go with that first question. It's very interesting. I think it does have something to do with it, is that they haven't been that aggressive in general, and that is true. But the way that they like to play, which at least the good news is at least they're not complaining about not getting fouls. That's a good thing.
Right, you guys are winning fouls. You guys have won more fouls than we have, so that's you guys have 312 fouls won, and we've only San Antonio's always won 276. But when I was looking at the fouls conceded, you guys have only had 224, which is actually last in the West,
Yeah.
which is great. Reno's next at 250, El Paso 251. So that even then, there's a pretty big discrepancy between just through there. And I'm not saying that you got to be dirty or anything like that, but to me, when it fouls conceded, that you can look at that kind of two ways. One, is it more just where they're, I don't want to say you guys are a finesse team, but if you just look at that compared to your, and this could just be my view of RGV. I've always thought you guys to be a little bit more physical, a little bit on that line. We'll just say where you guys kind of push the envelope a little bit sometimes on fouls, and that might just be more San Antonio RGV issues. But I've seen a few bumps in the road for RGV in other matches. So that was just the thing that kind of stuck out to me when I was just going through, kind of looking at the stats and comparing. Is your guys' fouls, while it's great, you don't have to worry about yellow cards or losing people along those lines. I just wonder if in the West, because it is a little physical, if that's possibly, it was just one of those things it was something that caught my eye as being a little bit different than normal for you guys.
So, hold on, let me see. All right. Ooh. So to me, you bring up these stats, Harry, and I look at the cards that RGV has, and we only have one red card, and I believe that red card was for Connor Donovan.
At the end of the game, too.
Yeah, that was at the end of the game.
Red.
Yeah. So, and we were talking about, my point of view on this is that right now our defense, whether it's Kyle or Connor or Castellanos or Coronado or Andrew Samuels, they tend to be very conservative in the way they press. They tend to be very technical. They don't go for the hard foul. They try to block your lines, block your your passageways through. We see it like against Las Vegas that I believe it was the second goal. Andrew Samuels giving the winger so much space to control the ball, to look up to see where his teammates are, and then crossing. It's those kind of things, because they're young, because they're inexperienced. Some of them, like Samuels and Coronado, being first year rookies. It's one of those things that I feel is an explanation as to why RGV may not be as physical this year than they were last year. Because remember that last year you had somebody who was gritty, which is Manny Padilla. Manny Padilla was gritty, and he continues to be gritty when he plays. Kai Green, when he managed to play as well. You had what was it? Shandon Williams? I don't remember. I don't remember what his name was. But he played left backs sometimes, and he was more physical than what Robert Coronado is now. And so I think that's the reason why we're seeing what you're saying is a less physical team. And while it's good in the aspect that we don't have a discipline problem and things like that, I think sometimes it can be viewed as kind of negative, especially when we played against Austin Bold, going up against all those veterans. These veterans that Austin Bold had got into the heads of our players and started focusing on something else rather than focusing on what they know what to do when it comes to playing soccer. And that's how Austin Bold, to me, was able to win that match, was because they took advantage of their experience.
The other thing that I think it ties into possibly is the clean sheets, by RGV, where you've only had 3. I think you guys have played 22, 23 games so far. You guys have only had 3, and all 3 of them have been at home. And that's the other thing that kind of excites me a little bit for San Antonio side, but with this being an RGV podcast. And that's why when I was kind of trying to see why is RGV, because you guys have good goaltenders. Typically, typically the goalies for RGV historically have been very good. And I know you guys get a few. I think you guys still rotate a little bit from the
Michael
Dynamo.
Nelson, yeah, correct.
So the quality's there. I was just trying to figure out kind of what's that missing piece, and I wonder if as you mentioned, being a little bit more conservative in the back line, not as aggressive, if that kind of is, sometimes leaving you guys open, for a little bit more on the attack side.
We discussed it, and Jacob's not going to let me lie, but we discussed that the biggest issues as to why we don't have a lot of clean sheets in this season, and was mostly because those mental lapses that occur, especially late in the games, where you have a really good match, where you have, you're getting towards that clean sheet, or maybe not the clean sheet, but you're getting towards the win or a point on the road, and a mental lapse at the end just finishes everything. And those little mistakes, with set pieces or being caught, being caught off guard on a counterattack, all of those little things adds up as to why this defense has not had as many clean sheets as they could have. Even with, because even in the Las Vegas match when we won 5-2, Michael Nelson was having the game of his life. But, with 2 defensive mishaps that happened in that match, Michael Nelson couldn't really go back to the Houston with a clean sheet in his name. And I still think it's because of how young this team is, and that's why I keep on Jacob and I keep on harping on this team. If it wants to be more successful in the USL Championship, you gotta mix it up between veterans on the field as well as young talent to develop. We saw it in 2016 under Wilmer Cabrera. We had a lot of experienced players in USL. We had a lot of ex-MLS players. We had Charlie Ward coming in from the Stoke City Academy. They had a good roster to that had that that change. And then all of a sudden in 2017 and beyond, it's like, oh, now we're just giving you a bunch of young guys. And we always have to start every year or every 2 years. We have to start from zero because new coach or Matt Jordan doesn't want these players anymore because they're past their 2-year leeway thing. The way they decide who goes to the Dynamo and who leaves the system altogether. It's those kind of things that I feel have impacted negatively RGV in the way that RGV could be a competitive team, but the Dynamo, plays against it sometimes. Jacob?
Yeah, for sure. It's weird situations indeed, and just those middle lapses, they are killer for sure. It's weird. It's just things that apparently can't be fixed from every aspect, not just the Toros. Apparently Houston decides they can have mental lapses as much as they want as well. So it's a lot of stuff that just makes this team who they are. They could be a lot better, but aren't necessarily that. And it's good to have rotation, especially at goal, because, well, it makes things easier, especially if we just get Nelson back, and Nelson knows this team. In my opinion, sometimes Nelson is the better goalkeeper because he can also, he kind of unites this team together a bit more than Nico Corti does. Don't get me wrong, each goalkeeper has their own perks, for sure. Nico Corti's really great with positioning himself behind goal. I think he's made one small mistake, and we're talking about that last year. Then this year, Michael Nelson.
Yeah, Michael Nelson is more about the reactions.
Exactly. So, there's pros to each of them, and that's a good thing.
Now, in regards to the first question that you asked us, Harry, we were actually going to discuss that in a little bit at the show, but we'll go ahead and discuss it right now. But we're actually going to be doing right here is we're going to go on a quick little break. I have to reset the Zoom meeting because hashtag free version. But when we come back, we'll go ahead and answer that question regarding the Wilmer Cabrera's firing, and we'll continue to talk about the South Texas Derby. So guys who are watching in the chat, if you guys haven't done so already, be sure and like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Don't go away. We will be right back in less than a minute. All right, guys, we're back with more Down in the Valley, alongside with the guest for tonight, Harry Austin from the South Texas, from the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. Real
Or
quick,
South Central, right?
yeah, right. So, while we're waiting for Jacob to get in here, tell us a little bit about your program.
So ours, the SA Soccer Roundtable, Scott and I, and lately we've had Rafa and a few other guests here. We try to talk soccer, not only USL with San Antonio FC, although that's probably the dominant one, to be fair. But we try to cover the men's and women's. We have 5 or 6 UPSL men's teams here, and we try to cover the women's teams, whether it's the Athenians and the United Women's Soccer League. We've got 4 WPSL teams, as well as the UPSL Women's League. We have 2 or 3 teams in there as well, so we cover them. This year with Scott and Rafa, we're going to cover a little bit more on the high schools here locally, as well as the UTSA and UIW women's soccer teams as well. So we try to cover all of at least the soccer here in San Antonio. I know I specialize a little bit more, if you follow me, in the UPSL realm on there, where Scott's more, the high schooler side, and Rafa is actually a recruiter for, local university, I guess in the Valley, right? Was it Victoria? I think it is. I guess there's a school, he kind of recruits down there. So it's a fun show. It's, some banter. We love hate San Antonio FC, just like you guys love hate RGV. So it's a fun thing. It's a passion. Just you guys do the same thing, and that's why I enjoy bantering with you, and but yet try to support you guys as much as we can, and then I know you guys support us as much as you can as well.
I mean, besides this week.
Well, it is hate week, it's, like I said, I went on Reno's show, and I think I'm not invited again here after last week's schlock.
Oh, man. But, all right. So when do y'all usually go live?
We switched it to Facebook on Tuesdays at 8.
That explains why I didn't see y'all's periscopes anymore.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
You guys don't, and that's why you guys don't see it, because you're doing another show with the Dynamo.
Yeah, January.
At that same time as well. So, but we found that when we switched over to Facebook, that we got a little bit more interaction. So that's what prompted the move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet. But all right, Jacob's actually back. So you asked us before we went on break. You asked us about the effects that Wilmer Cabrera's firing or sacking was going to have on RGV, or what we expect it to be. Personally, to me, I think for the rest of the season, I think it shouldn't be too big of a difference. I think the only difference is going to be, the biggest question is, how much is Davy Arnaud going to allow, the inter-team loans? How is he going to handle them? Is he going to handle them like Wilmer Cabrera, where it's just like he's going to send them the night before? Or is he going to, going into it, giving them a whole week to train with the team? Now, because we're only 9 games left in the MLS season, I don't think he's going to make any drastic changes. Why? Because he is just the interim coach.
Yeah.
So they're just going to try and see and ride out this season and hopefully make playoffs, and not at the end of the season, going into next season, there's going to be a new coach, and that's where I think we're going to see the biggest difference in how RGV might be affected. We're going to have to figure out, when the Dynamo make a decision who they hire. We're going to need to analyze, okay, has this coach handled youth development, or at least handled an affiliation before with another team? And I think that will be the biggest answer to the future of RGV. If this is going to be the same old, Dynamo, or if we're actually going to see some positive changes in how this pipeline is going to actually continue to develop. Now, as far as Gerson Echeverry, I think the Dynamo are gonna view the continuation of Gerson Echeverry. I think you're gonna view it independently of what happened with Wilmer Cabrera. At least I hope that they understand that if Coach Echeverry has not had a lot of positive results, especially away, the team has played well. The team, we've seen them improve in many aspects, but the way that the Dynamo have handled these loans, what appears to be forced starts by MLS loanees into the starting 11, that kind of disrupts the plans that Coach Echeverry had during the week going into this match. I think that's been the biggest fault as to why RGV hasn't been very consistent enough. And hopefully Matt Jordan sees that, and we can have Gerson Echeverry for a third year going into next season. I don't know what you think, Jacob.
Yeah, if Matt Jordan is even here, because apparently the fans want him gone as well, because they think that he is the reason why. Now, of course, Cisco or any of those people think otherwise, but the people on Twitter who really believe that Matt Jordan's also the problem, they are very interesting people, and I should totally get to know them because they seem like a great group of people. I'm just kidding.
Well, that was going to be my question.
They're very fine people.
I understand that Wilmer's gone, but isn't it Jordan the one that controls the technical side?
He controls the technical side for sure, but it's also the point is he's not the one that decides how much money he's going to get. That's, of course,
Brenner.
The owners. The owners will give him so much money to find players. And guess what? He's done a fantastic job with getting the players that he has. He got a really good player from the Chilean League, as well as getting Christian Ramirez, who, guess what, scored in his first debut before, of course, the firing of Wilmer Cabrera. But that's an impressive signing right off the bat. He's had impressive signings in general.
And to be honest, when it comes to this, Matt Jordan, what he is in charge of is scouting of players, making sure that all these roster changes fall within the limits and intricacies of MLS rules and regulations when it comes to GAM and TAM, BAM, whatever you want to call it. Wilmer Cabrera was the one that was in charge of handling the roster that Matt Jordan gave him. Mm-hmm. And he was the one that made the decisions. Okay, you're going to RGV, or you know what? I want to pull this player, in our case, Michael Salazar. I want to pull Michael Salazar right now because Ronaldo Peña isn't doing well, and I only have Mauro Menottes that I can rely on. I need somebody else, so they pull Michael Salazar. And to me, like I said, I think that's one of the biggest things that is going to change potentially is how these loans are going to be handled, how these rosters are going to be handled with the new coach. Because I think Wilmer Cabrera had no idea how to work the pipeline effectively, which is a shame and a surprise when you think about the fact that where did Wilmer Cabrera come from before coming into Houston? Oh, that's right, RGVFC.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a weird thing, and I mean, hopefully, just like Edson said, they don't see it as also a fault with Gerson Echeverry, because guess what? Now you also decide to let Gerson Echeverry go. That's a very dumb mistake, because now you're just going to reset your pipeline again.
Yeah.
And you can't keep pressing the reset button on your pipeline, or else, well,
It's
you're never going to have a youth system in a sense.
Exactly.
And that's not good. It's not good at all. You don't need a youth system, or, well, I mean, you need a youth system, but you don't need a youth system resetting almost every other year. And that's one important thing. Now, the other important thing is, now since you fired this head coach, congratulations, you're not making the playoffs this year for sure. Unless some miracle happens where in the next 9 games, A, you win them all, and B, your interim head coach saves your butt. It's just a very late and odd time to do this, and I don't expect good from here. Now, just like Edson said, next season, that's when you're going to see the difference in the good coming out of this firing, most likely, unless, of course, and this is from one of the Dynamo fans saying this, you don't hire someone that's better than Wilmer, because you need a coach that knows how to deal with freaking discipline, because apparently players are a lot of worse to handle. I mean, we got rid of the worst one, but we kept 2 that are still pretty not amazing, and that's Elise and Kyoto, because they've got a bit more. I don't know. Now Kyoto says he's going to change. Only time will tell.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's one thing. 2, just like Edson said on his tweet, tactics. They've got to know when to change the tactics. Now, of course, can an MLS player know when to change tactics, or really be able to? Can they change? Can they have multiple things in a sense, like as in just 4-3-2-1 and then change to a 4-4-2 or something like that? So that's one thing that needs to just be noted, that sometimes it's not always the coach for tactics change. Sometimes those players just can't necessarily comprehend those. It takes a lot longer than people expect. Now, of course, you're an MLS player and you should be able to do that. And that's what a lot of people say. You're a soccer player in general. You should be able to change halfway through a match of a formation if you see a difference. I mean, the best example with that was that Reno that did that to us? If I'm not mistaken, came out with a totally different tactic.
Yeah, they're known for, if things aren't working, to make changes, with the exception of this past week, because they got RGV'd this week. I hate to say it, but San Jose sent 5 players down the night before and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. So
sounds very familiar.
It didn't work out, I'll say. So.
It still worked out for them. That's the only difference. But yeah, no, it's just, you got to have a coach that knows tactics, that knows discipline. And what was the other thing, Edson?
It was the ability to adapt. You mentioned discipline, but also being able to have experience working the youth pipeline.
Yeah, that's it. And for sure, he can also be, because, yeah, I think this might be, I'm not going to say it, I guess, but I don't know, the way that our youth pipeline works, just sending players down at night, and I think this is an assumption that it's like coach's decision or something like that to send those players down. That's an assumption. Once again, I don't know. So if that's the case, then him knowing, okay, let's try something different. Maybe I'll send them for a week down to RGV, and they'll train with the team a whole week and then do that. So yeah, just a little bit of change in that direction would be fantastic. That's a perfect coach right there. Now, do I know a name off the top of my head that's not already taken that can do that? No. But there is some coach that can totally do that for sure. And that could be perfect for Houston. Now we know they've got to be cheap, because Houston Dynamo, they're not going to pay a lot of money for that. So, but you can find a coach that's like that has that discipline and all that knowledge, and pay them a good amount.
Agree. So going back with RGV versus San Antonio, the South Texas Derby.
Mhm.
You know, it seems to me that just like any other typical derby in the world, whether it's Tigres, Monterrey, Chivas America, Boca River Plate, Real Madrid, Barcelona, it seems that 9 times out of 10, once you play this match, once you're at the 90 minutes of the derby, the stats coming into this match don't seem to matter. It's anybody versus anybody can win. RGV can have the worst time of all the matches coming into this, and they can squeak a win. Or San Antonio can be really poor. Or even we had that match last season where it seemed like both of them were doing good, and in that match, San Antonio completely humiliated us at home at HEB Park. So my question to you is, do you see this exact same pattern going into this match, or do you think that there's enough of a difference in style or a difference in motivation from these two teams that the result of this match is going to follow the logic?
Well, I don't think logic ever follows this match. First of all, so it's a rivalry game. I'm gonna favor San Antonio just because in recent form, and I think how they left RGV left a sour taste in their mouth, and to me that was the bottom.
Yeah.
If you look at what they've done since that match, things have turned around. It's not perfect by any means, but form going in, you'd have to at least say on paper that it favors San Antonio because they're starting to figure it out on the road. They got destroyed the last time they faced RGV. And then, the other factor on this is the last home match they lost. But it was on 3 set pieces. And I guess that would be kind of my question for you guys is it seems like San Antonio's, their weakness right now is set pieces. And I'm not sure if that's a strength or weakness of RGV.
That's a weakness.
That's a weakness. We can't even cross the ball either.
We can't cross either. So that's
Now we've scored on set pieces with Chelin. I mean, we scored in set piece against El Paso, against Real Monarchs, and a couple other teams as well. But it hasn't been very consistent when it comes to that. Our biggest thing is, and you heard about it before you came on, and that is defending set pieces has been a major pain for RGV, throughout the season.
right.
How has San Antonio been effective in attacking set pieces?
Not very well. It's the problem with San Antonio and with Frank Lopez. It doesn't help. Is we're a small team. We're quick, but on set pieces, you need that. To me, you need that height. So if it's not a Barnby free kick, and it depends on if he's starting or not, it's not there. Where I think the big difference, for San Antonio, and this is what RGV used to do to San Antonio, was the pressure. The pressure on the back, and especially if you guys have an inexperienced back line. And that's where I think that San Antonio can be deadly is with the speed on the wings, with the speed up the middle now with Pirano and Lopez is more, that kind of counterish, type thing where you're going to pressure earlier as opposed to setting back like, San Antonio historically has done. So if it's a set piece game, sounds like we're both kind of in trouble on that. To answer your first question though, who knows how this game's going to go? You and I have been doing this, 3 years, 4 years now?
3.
3 years. So each time we think that we know what's going to happen, it typically goes the opposite direction.
Yeah. What I remember from last season, I guess I think it was y'all's end of the regular season at home, right? Or actually, the end of the regular season period, because I don't.
We didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, we played spoiler on you on that. But one of the things that I kind of held from that match is, you mentioned it, the pressure that San Antonio placed on RGV throughout most of the match. It was constant. It was a barrage of crosses, a barrage of shots that were being blocked. Or I think it was at that time, I think it was Michael Nelson, on form, getting to it. But it was a mostly San Antonio oriented game. There were some lapses where RGV wanted to make some damage with the counters, especially at the end when San Antonio was pushing everybody up. There were some chances where RGV had the opportunity to do counters, but taking too long and making the pass or making an incorrect pass ended up killing those attacks. And in the end, the final whistle that made Chewy really, really mad, because like, why didn't you let it go? But at the end of the day, it was a really good match. But the end of the matter is, like you said, the pressure is going to be key. Pressuring each other to see who's going to make the most mistakes. Because at the end of the day, in derbies, when it's so highly contested, that's what's going to be the key factor. Who's going to make the most mistakes? Because neither team is going to want to budge an inch and allow the other to do what they do best. Whether it's 1-2 passes or shots from outside the box, like RGV with Chuy or with Camilo, or crossing it into Michael Salazar or Carlos Esmal, or the quickness of Frank Lopez, Perano, etc. And I think that's going to be the biggest question, is who has the greatest what's the word I'm looking for? The greatest strength, the greatest aggressiveness. Who is more aggressive when it comes to that? And to me, it has to be San Antonio. San Antonio looks to be more aggressive defensive wise than RGV, because you have some players that are veterans that can bring in that aggression when they need to. And when RGV tries to go aggressive, they don't know how to be aggressive and be clean, or they let themselves lose their minds because they get in their heads and they start losing their minds. They start making dumb fouls, or they start arguing with the ref, or anything except focusing on what's going on inside the pitch.
Yeah, well, and that kind of goes back to a conversation we were having earlier with the, with the aggressiveness, the fouls conceded by RGV, where, it's one of those sneaky stats that you look at and you say, hey, that's great, but then when you kind of look at it here, if you're at the bottom, that tells me something's missing. And as you mentioned here, with it being extremely a young team in the back, which it just kind of blows my mind, because I think going into the season, you and I both had RGV in it as the playoffs, based on last year's form and team, and it's just crazy that we're still kind of talking about, hey, we're building again, and happen to cycle through it and we learn these positions, but that's the key for me is, because the last time we played, you guys had who was the goal scorers?
I think one of them was,
and Jesus Arinquez and Salazar had the brace. Are they still with RGV?
So Chuy is still with RGV. He's still in full time. He has gone in a bit of a rut. He hasn't scored a lot of goals. He hasn't had a lot of assists ever since then. But I think in the last match against Colorado, he was benched. So he's been benched a couple of times so far this season for the same reason, because his form has kind of gone down. and now you have players like Kevin Rodriguez and Camilo Monroy that are kind of stepping up into the plate. Michael Salazar right now, it's one of since he now is an MLS player, he's now with the Houston Dynamo. It's one of those things where we have to find out the Friday before if he's going to be loaned down or not, or maybe even sometimes like hours before, like before the match. That's when the Dynamo make the announcement, like, oh, we loaned down so and so from the Houston Dynamo to RGVFC for this match. But it's been consistently, when the Dynamo have loaned players, it's consistently Sam Junqua and Michael Salazar, and sometimes Eric Bird.
And we'd expect that they're going to be at this game, right? Because history says Houston sends basically whoever you guys get at home. Typically, they get sent to San Antonio as well. Just because it's so close. So
Yeah.
I would expect to see Mr. Salazar and the other fringe. I'm not sure when the Dynamo play. I didn't check that.
They play on Saturday as well.
So they play
at
on
home.
Saturdays.
Yeah, here
at home. So that might be the only factor that's favorable for San Antonio. But to me, that's always the wild card when it comes to this, because as much as you and I kind of joke around the rivalry and the bringing down of the Daddy Dynamo. This is the one that typically always San Antonio gets the best players that Houston will offer to send down. So
I'm going to be honest. I am afraid of this match. And Jacob's probably going to shake his head in disgust, but I am honestly afraid. Because, even if we want to admit it or not, and even though, like we mentioned with derbies, it kind of doesn't really matter how they go in. But the fact that we have a lot more questions than answers with this team leading up to this match, and it kind of leaves some doubts on my mind that we'll be able to get past a really motivated Frank Lopez and San Antonio FC, especially at home.
Well, I disagree once again.
I knew you were.
Yeah, I've said it for the past, I think, 2 weeks. I think this is going to be my third, saying those last two matches that RDVFC played, even the sketchiness, I think they can still come up and get a result, as well as 3 points in San Antonio. Yes, of course, San Antonio FC do have the advantage with the field conditions because they know how to play on it, which is true. Have you seen the field recently?
The field's not as bad as it was.
Okay.
They've replaced 2/3 of it with the grass. Only the east side of the field from the outside of the 18s.
Okay.
There's a little bit of the sandbox feeling to it, but everything else is good. So the pitch itself shouldn't be an issue. Now, it's been super hot here, and we'll see how it is, but I don't expect to be the field that the sandbox that it was against El Paso or New Orleans.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the only worry that I'd have then is just the grass installation. Yeah, you mentioned it's been hot up here, which is true. And when that happened, I know the first time the grass for the Toros wasn't necessarily that great, as in there were pieces of turf coming up, and that would be my only worry, even though grass is supposed to be really good with insulation.
It's been 3-4 weeks. They played a couple matches at home. So no, that's when Cardiff came to play, they had most of it changed at that time, or else I don't think Cardiff would have played on it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, sure.
It was that bad, but yeah, the pitch itself, barring something that we haven't seen, there should be no issue. It's still a sandbox. I'm going to keep calling it a sandbox. That's what it is. You step off the pitch, and especially if you're on the north end side, it's just sand right there, foot off the pitch. So it's underneath, and with the quarry behind it, it kind of works and at least gives it a little bit of identity. as far as the pitch. But no, it's. But I'm with you actually, Jacob, and I'm probably actually going to go a little bit different direction. And I think the change in Houston might be favorable to where you may not get a whole lot of players coming down. Especially ones that aren't known. You may get Salazar and stuff like that. But I think the interim coach is going to try to play it safe and at least for the first week see what he has along those lines, because you figure something with training and stuff like that they are trying to implement a new system. So I think for RGV this week might be a little bit of advantage where you don't get all of the all of the funny funny movements between Houston and RGV. I think this week, because of the coaching change, you might get a little bit more RGV
Specific players.
specific players.
Yeah, I agree. I think that could happen as well for sure, and that would be fantastic. I mean, Edson and I think we've talked on this show and we've said these exact words almost week in and week out. And that is the young players for the Toros, the bench warmers in a way, since we lost Michael Salazar full time at least, and we've gotten Sam Junko, but Junko could be up there just like you said in Houston. The big thing is take advantage of your opportunities, because now, without that, yes, there is not necessarily going to be competition for that week for Carlos Small, but Carlos Small still has to be on his game. Same thing with Tree Enriquez, has to help out, get an assist at least, and that will be key. So it's just going to be something like that.
I mean, we know the players are motivated coming into this match, especially a player like Chuy Enriquez, who has embraced the identity of RGV, of hating San Antonio. Like I remember when I interviewed him last season at that game, that away game at Toyota Field. I asked him, about these last couple of matches, about playing how they've pretty much about. I asked him about Carlos Small and how he has connected with him and stuff like that. And I remember before, as he was leaving, he grabs my phone. He's like, "And we eliminated San Antonio." and so he's one of those players that has embraced the rivalry, and I think players like him on both sides is going to be key to the success of who's going to get the 3 points tonight. Because let's also not forget that right now RGV is in a bigger need of getting these 3 points than San Antonio is. But San Antonio at the same time does not want to lose this 3 points because they're already in playoff spots and they don't want to lose the playoff position right now. So it's gonna be a good match. I'm gonna be over there this weekend. I'm gonna be going in San Antonio, so hopefully it'll be a good match. And for what I heard, there's gonna be Stampede members going to this game as well.
Yeah, I heard about 15 Stampede members are coming up for that as well. So yeah, it's and for anybody Stampede or RGV related, go out to the tailgate if you get there early. The Crocketeers have one. I know Mission City has one. Not gonna lie, there'll probably be some banter thrown back and forth, but typically I know
they're pretty good guys.
Exactly. Don't worry, we got rid of our bad apples, so we're good.
I understood that reference.
Like that there's no bad apples up here, but we know that's not true. So 95% of the people that are out there are awesome. I know at the Crocketeers, it's got the free beer, the 805 beer, really outstanding beer from California, which sucks, but hey, it's a good beer.
It's beer.
It's beer. It's wet, but I like it.
Exactly.
But typically, you'll have barbecue or tacos. I don't know what the theme is this week for it as well. I do also know that they are possibly working on a El Paso Strong TPO that I think that all the supporter groups are going to try to get together pre-match to support El Paso for what happened a couple of weeks ago. I've heard that's a possibility. I haven't got that confirmed 100%, but I know in talking with the Crocketeers that's something that they are trying to work together, and I'm hoping they'll reach out to the Stampede. And I know I've already kind of mentioned it out to them. So to me, that would be something kind of cool pregame tailgate area. But please, if you come up, I work till 5, unfortunately, so I'll be getting there a little bit later than normal for that here. So.
But yeah, definitely. So, all right, so let's go into our favorite part of the show, and that is predictions and bold predictions. So, Harry, what's your regular prediction?
Well, looking at the history, history says if a team's going to win, it's generally by a 3-1 score, or 3-0. Because if you look at it's either 1-0 or 3-0, or it's a tie. So I'm going to roll with the 3-1 score. Return the favor to RGV. I think San Antonio will get up early by 2. RGV will score 1. Start of the second half to make it interesting, and then San Antonio will get the late goal to put it away. But I think history says it. If you look at it here, surprisingly, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, leave 5 if you count the 3-2 very first match. 5 matches where the winning team has got 3 goals.
Yeah, wow, that's a really interesting statistic. And so, what's your bold prediction?
Bold prediction is can it come back to that? I'm trying to think of actually. Bold prediction is one team that RGV will get a red card, just because that would be
Chewy.
Chewy, yeah, true. He'll be the one that gets frustrated and tries to slide tackle someone.
All right, Harry. Do you have any last words before we let you go today?
No, it was great talking with you guys. I know this is the last one for this year, unless both of us squeak into the playoffs and then face them. But it's always great supporting you guys, and I try to tune in every week that I'm able to, if not catch it on the replay. But you guys do great work, and like I said here, I always look forward to the stuff that you guys put out.
And we always appreciate your insight, whether it's discussions that make us think, or statistics like you did today on Twitter and on the show. We really appreciate not only the support that you bring us to Down in the Valley, but Gen Orange and other USL podcasts, because I know you're very active with other USL podcasts as well, and I think we need more fans like you to be more involved with the growing league that is USL Championship. But
that would be the best league. But all right, peace, guys.
All right, have a good night, Harry, and thank you. All right, Jacob. So, what is your actually? Hold on, let me just give you a new link right now, just for the end of the show, because we got 1 minute for this team for this meeting. Hold on, let me do it real quick. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. We're just gonna do just the last push of today's episode. Just a quick reminder: if you have not done so already, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with all of your RGV friends. And just take a quick look into the chat. My dad says, regardless of standing position, Toros versus San Antonio feels like Tigres versus Rayados. You can lose to any other team, but you cannot lose to San Antonio or RGV, respectively. Cesar, welcome. Cesar, he says, what did I miss? He wishes he could make the trip. And then Javier, my dad says he still remembers the way they treated our family last year, and they treated us really, really well. And he's talking about the supporters groups for San Antonio. Cesar brings his prediction, which is 2-2 draw, RGV late equalizer. So, on to you, Jacob. What is your prediction?
All right, regular prediction. Yeah, I think I'd have to go with the draw because draws have been very common there. Yes, it can go either way, just like Harry said. But I'm going to go with the draw and going to go a bit high, but not as high as I normally do. So 3-3 draw. And why I'd say that is just due to the fact not only it happened last week, but just the defenses on both sides seem a bit sketchy for especially set pieces. And just the reactions, I think both sides will have problems with just reactions, and both teams will be able to get out on offense, on the front foot for offense in general. I bet you San Antonio FC scores that first goal, but it won't matter. Now, bold prediction, though, yes, things will get heated. I think almost each player for RGV will get a yellow card, as well as almost each player on San Antonio FC, as well as this is also something, because it's also happening right now with the Club America and Atlanta United game. Both coaches have gotten a yellow card. I think both coaches will get a yellow card in San Antonio. And we're talking about a 4-2 scoreline with RGVFC winning.
And America has somebody on the red.
Yeah, exactly. Going on a red because it was an ugly challenge where they just took down.
I mean, it's America. What do you expect?
Exactly.
So, before I give my predictions, I just want to go ahead and mention this. We have played in official matches. We have played at Toyota Field five times throughout our history. RGV has 2 wins in Toyota Field, 2 draws, and 1 win by San Antonio. So Toyota Field favors RGV historically. Yep. The first time it was in 2016, 2-3 win over San Antonio, and then a 0-0 draw that same year. 2017, it was a 1-0 win in the 27th week. Then 3 weeks later, 3-1 loss. And then, like we mentioned, last year, 1-1 draw between both teams. So my prediction, to me, it's a 2-1 win. I think even though I'm scared going into this match, I still think that RGV is going to find a way to get a 2-1 win. My bold prediction for this match is that my bold prediction for this match is going to be a 3-0 loss by the Toros. And that's my bold prediction. Toros can do well, but I feel like there's a lot of things going on right now with this team defensive-wise and set pieces, like we mentioned, that even though San Antonio may not be as good at set pieces, but the lack of communication that we've seen sometimes from our defenders, I think San Antonio is going to be able to pounce on them, and if they're not careful, we may see that scoreline against the Toros. So my bold prediction, 3-0 loss. Regular prediction, 2-1 win.
Yeah, very possible for sure for both of those to happen. It could happen either way, and that's always the scary/fun part about sports in general. It could go so many different directions. It could go so great for your team, so bad for your team, and so average for your team. So
that's
just the way it goes.
That's why it's a beautiful game. So,
exactly.
Jacob, any last words before we sign off today?
Yeah, just looking forward to Saturday's game for sure. Every change that has happened in the past 24 hours, basically, very crazy for both sides, the Toros and Houston Dynamo. And, of course, I guess I could say this. Let's go Atlanta United. Let's beat Club America.
Yes.
Go MLS.
Yes. Mostly because I hate Club America with a passion, more than Rayados.
Yeah, I just hate the head coach, really.
Well. And you know what's funny, though? That some people want him as the head coach of the Houston Dynamo.
Oh, yeah, I know, I've heard that. I think you were the one that brought it up to me, brought to my attention that some people wanted that. And I'm like, yeah, no, please. Please, no.
We don't want another hothead.
Exactly. Well, yeah, the problem is he'll run on to the pitch. We need, honestly, of course, and this is a dream head coach, someone like Jurgen Klopp, someone who has his personality where he's not necessarily
passionate,
so
but
much
not
of
a hothead.
but so skilled at what he does as well, and it's just a loving coach in a way, and is successful.
You know who I would want as a head coach for the Dynamo? Tab Ramos.
Yeah.
But guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We hope you really like this show, and be sure to follow us on our social media at Down in the RGV on Twitter and on Instagram, and on Facebook we are look for us as Down in the Valley. Be sure to check out as well the archive if you missed any part of the show. That'll be available right as soon as the stream ends. Be sure to also check out South Texas Border Sports on YouTube and on Twitter as well. And follow us on our personal social media at eochoa_8 for myself and Jacob Young 456 on Twitter for Jacob. And they are about to actually engrave Atlanta's name on the Campeones Cup trophy. But America's got a corner right now. So
Oh, you got a corner. Yep, they do.
and let's remember that if they tie, it goes straight to pens. Oh,
Yeah,
counterattack.
yeah, that's right.
counterattack,
It does.
Counterattack.
That's-
Se la lleva. Is that Gressel? No. Where's Joseph? 15 seconds left. Oh, dude, this is gonna be historic for MLS.
For sure. Beating the
oh.
goalkeeper.
Oh no. Uh-oh. Oh, he left. What did he do? He called a handball.
No.
That's it. That's it. Atlanta United has defeated America. And with that, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see each other next week for another episode of Down in the Valley. Take care.